Welcome back, everyone, to Making Waves, the show from the Chicago Maritime Museum all about our city's past and present on the waterways. I'm Madeline Crispell, the museum's curator, and with me, as always, is Sari Breslin, the museum's education director.
Thanks, Madeline. We have a very exciting episode today, but it's also bittersweet for us since this episode is our season finale. We've both had such a good time this year chatting with so many people who are doing fascinating work around our waterways. Our finale is no exception because today our guest is Nick Wesley, Executive Director and co-founder of Urban Rivers.
While our show typically looks at the past and present of our waterways, for our season finale, we're also looking at the future of Chicago's waterways. Urban Rivers is dedicated to making sure urban waterways are sanctuaries for city wildlife. The Wild Mile project in Lincoln Park and the floating gardens down in Bridgeport are both great examples of the work Urban Rivers has done to bring nature back to one of Chicago's most important natural features. Nick Wesley has led the development of Wild Mile from its grassroots origins to its current status as a globally recognized urban ecology project. Through his work overcoming technical and regulatory challenges, the Wild Mile project continues to inspire similar initiatives in other cities around the world. Thanks so much for joining us, Nick.
Oh, absolutely. Fantastic to be here.
Now, the viewers at home who've watched our show know that the Chicago Maritime Museum is located on Bubbly Creek, which is the site of one of the most polluted stretches of the Chicago River. Now, the work that you guys have been doing is right in some of these very industrial corridors.
Yeah. I mean, the kind of mission that we aim to achieve, we want to take these industrialized waterways, these things that we've really manufactured for, shipping and sewage removal and all these things, and kind of take that infrastructure and build what you would find in a more naturalized ecosystem, the best that we can. So, Bubbly Creek is kind of a prime target, as, it's notorious. It's been in Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, and, it's just something that when people think of a damaged waterway, the first thing they think of a lot of times is Bubbly Creek. But, we're hoping to kind of change that perception and show there's a lot more to it.
And we have a picture here of the Wild Mile, I believe. I can't even believe, how did you come up with this idea? Where did it come from?
Yeah, so, the idea, I think it's floated around in the ether for a long time. Like, I know in the 90s, the city proposed putting a boardwalk with wetlands around this area. There's been proposals here and there throughout time. And, we basically saw this as something that could rehabilitate the wildlife ecosystem in the area, or create habitat and other things like that. And then also create a really interesting place for people to kind of connect to nature. And, at first we thought, like, we're not the ones that should do this. There's got to be somebody better, more qualified, who knows how to do this. And eventually we figured out that nobody else wanted to do it. And naively we thought, okay, we can. Seems easy, we kind of got an idea of what to do, and that was a little over 10 years ago, and wasn't easy, but eventually you figure it out one step at a time.
So do you still have to worry about shipping, and how did you determine the spacing between the size? How did you determine the size of your islands?
Yeah, so this area, it's located on the east side of Goose Island, and it was one of the reasons it's there is because it was easier to permit. In that area, it's got a rail bridge that's sealed
doesn't go up anymore.
Doesn't go up, and the rail goes to nowhere. So and then there's a couple other bridges that were sealed. The bottom, so the canal was dug in I think 1853 by William Ogden, so the first mayor, and it was dug to 18 feet. At this point, it's about 5 feet deep.
Wow.
5 to 8 feet, depending on where you are. So it's all the sediment and muck and stuff that's piled up.
Wow.
And so you can't really get big boats through there. So it made it easier because what we were able to determine with the Army Corps, what their legal team determined is that it's functionally non-navigable, even though it's still navigable under, it was still navigable under their kind of regulations. But that allowed us a lot more leeway in putting something in because there wasn't that conflict of, commercial ships moving through, and, there was a little bit more risk tolerance in putting something like this in and seeing how it worked. And so, yeah.
Now, we have a pretty cool photo of one of these islands being moved. There are 9 million logistics questions that this photo brings up to me. How do you keep these islands if they're able to be moved by a tugboat here? How do you keep them from moving away the rest of the year?
Yeah, and so this is one of the, I think, unique advantages of the whole kind of approach is it's very modular. All of these things are installed by volunteers. From bolting together to adding all of the plant substrate, the leca and wood chip, to planting, to then maintaining and everything like that. So it makes it very flexible to be able to do this type of stuff. But, there's a couple different ways that we kind of moor them. We have on the Wild Mile, so the picture you guys saw before of the floating park, that system is a series of either concrete blocks or helical anchors, depending on where along it you are. They go down, and the helical anchors go down to the actual clay bottom of the river.
Wow.
And then the anchors are just very heavy. And then it's connected with chain and then these elastics. And so as the river ebbs and flows, the elastics stretch, and so it allows it to move up and down, but not kind of move around.
Yeah, because the river level changed 8 feet, was it, in 2024?
Yeah, exactly. So this, we have, normally it stays within, maybe 3 feet of where it is, but on big rain events and things like that, you get these pretty big swings where it basically equalizes to the lake level.
Wow.
And at that time, the lake was really high, so it has to be able to kind of do that without any issue.
You said volunteers put these together, but volunteers build them as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who pays for this?
Yeah, so this was a collaboration with Shed, the Bubbly Creek install with Shed Aquarium, and the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation.
Oh.
So we were able to get this in, because of that type of support.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I know you guys have worked with the Shed as well on this very cool community kayaking project. Could you tell us a little bit about that? We have a cool photo of some kayakers with the skyline in the background as well.
Yeah, look at that shot.
Beautiful.
Great.
The boathouse.
Yeah, so this is, at Park 571 in Canal Origins, so in Bubbly Creek. We do, every Friday, we have a free community kayak program, and Shed puts on a fishing program. So people come out to the park, you just kind of first come, first serve, get in the boat for a little bit, tour around the gardens, hang out and kind of get acclimated to the river. But the real goal is to get residents who have been historically really shut out of the river. It's not. A lot of times it doesn't feel like it's something that people can recreate on. There's, and if you're, say a family and you're like, oh, I want to go kayak, that it's an expensive endeavor. And so, we kind of thought, well, we have kayaks, we do, trash pickups, all this other stuff. Let's make this a regular thing and allow people to really experience this and then get up and close to the gardens and, be able to fish in the area. So far it's been super, super cool.
You said that's every Friday?
Every Friday, yeah.
I mean, is it still going on?
Still going on till the end of the month, yep.
Oh,
Wow.
That's awesome. I like one of your mission statements is called Sanctuaries for All. You guys can read that on their website. But truly, you're trying to get the people that are living by the river to actually interact with it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So besides the kayaking, what's some of the other programming you guys have done? I mean, I know to experience the Wild Mile, to hang out on these floating parks, that alone is a great way of engaging with the river. But what else is some of the stuff you guys have been working on?
Yeah, so we try to do a ton of different programs, really to get people exposed to the parks and exposed to the river, and then also make it a place where other organizations and people hosting things can come and kind of have their shtick, whatever it is.
Don't you have a jam going on tonight?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we do.
I saw that on your website, too.
Yeah, we have, we do on Wednesdays, we have this cat jam thing,
Yeah.
so people get together, play music. Every Thursday, we do a workshop, so we have different people come out and do, do whatever. It's a big variance.
Wow.
And then, we have artists who are putting on stuff, so we have an artist who put in a really cool, Eric Peterson, he put in a really cool wooden chair called Two Sanctuaries, where it's made out of all invasive trees that were in the area. And the wood actually goes into the water to provide habitat below and then kind of moves above, so you can kind of have that cool interaction.
Sounds like you guys have thought of everything.
No, there's still a lot more. But it's like, a big thing is like, this is such a weird thing. It's something that like is not a normal park, and we really want to try to find ways to kind of get people to connect to it, bring them down to it, and then see what the potential is, how we can actually, how it could become a piece of the kind of fabric of the city.
I know Madeline first met you at a fun event.
Yeah, so, it always surprises our visitors when they come to the Chicago Maritime Museum. If I'm giving them a tour, just if I'm bothering them, we get to the back of the gallery where you can see Bubbly Creek, and we talk about the history of that stretch of the river, how polluted it was. It was bubbling for decades because of the refuse from the meatpacking industry.
Yeah.
And it is shocking to our visitors when they look out and they can see herons and egrets and cormorants and all these different birds. However, I always get to surprise them by telling them about some other animals who are down on our stretch of the river. This is a beaver family, and Nick and I met earlier this year at an event announcing the name of the Bridgeport beaver. Now, I don't believe this is the same beaver. We have an image of another cute baby beaver here, just like the
Sure,
ones you
it's
could
the
see
same.
on Bubbly Creek.
The Bubbly Creek ones are a little bit bigger.
Rounder.
A little rounder, more rotund. Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about the wildlife on the river?
Yeah, it is, one of the very interesting things about building a park on the river is, it's such a connector between neighborhoods, between different watersheds, and between, just everywhere. And so when you look at, like, if you built this park, if you built a perfectly naturalized park in the middle of the city, you get things, you get birds, you get all sorts of stuff, but there'd be a challenge because you'd be surrounded by roads. It'd be very difficult for a lot of wildlife to actually get there. Whereas in a river, they just kind of swim over. Mm-hmm. And so you see things like tons of beavers, tons of different birds, tons of muskrats, things like that, coyotes. One of my favorite things is in the South Branch, the river freezes over, and we have some wildlife cameras out there, and you can see that there are just an enormous amount of coyotes who are just using this ice as basically a highway. They're running from place to place. They're hanging out in the gardens that are kind of frozen in. And, we have one photo where it's 5 coyotes in one frame, which is weird. So, yeah, there's tons of wildlife. And, it's one of the few places where you can really connect with them directly. You know, people come down here, they come to the Wild Mile, and it is very common to be able to see a beaver, to be able to see a muskrat, you know, see all sorts of things that you normally wouldn't find.
Giant snapping turtle that was
oh, yeah.
on internet
Chonkosaurus.
success. Yes.
Yeah. Chonk lives like right by the Wild Mile, maybe 200 feet from it. So,
Wow.
You
yeah.
can see a city celebrity if you go to the Wild Mile, folks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There you have it.
Yeah.
105 species of birds.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Oh, yeah.
On the river that was so dirty. I spend a lot of time on the river, and I remember bringing my kids down there and telling them, whatever you do, don't fall in the river because you're going to come out bone. You know? Like the cartoons, because it was so dirty. But now you're doing wonderful things.
Yeah.
For all this wildlife to be happening there.
Now, I want to make sure the people at home know. I mentioned that we were at an event
his name.
naming the
What's his
Bridgeport
name?
beaver. Could you share with the people what are the names of the Bridgeport beavers?
So, Ida B. Wells was the winner. That
Yeah.
was the number one by like an enormous margin.
We love Ida
It
B.
was-
Wells in Chicago. It makes sense.
Yes. So, congratulations. Then we had two others that we named. There was Plumpton Sinclair
Uh-huh.
and Chewy Garcia.
Of course.
Oh, Chewy Garcia.
3 great Chicagoans recognized in the wildlife of our city.
What about the lesser known wildlife?
Right, not
that's-
your mammals or your birds.
The ones that are actually doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
The filters.
Yeah, I mean, mussels.
Yeah.
Mussels, baby.
We've got a
They're-
photo of one of these too.
Let's see that. Yeah, look at
The
that.
size of
Muscles
that thing.
out.
So this one is called a giant floater because of it's big. It's a big mussel.
It is.
And so mussels used to be really ubiquitous throughout, our river systems. And so in some places they make up something like 90% of the biomass, I've heard.
Wow.
So they were huge. And, in the process, so I kind of talked about William Ogden digging up this canal, but
Yeah.
in the rest of the river, we dredged the river. So we physically pulled all of these mussels that live in the sand and sediment bottom out. We dammed the river, putting in the locks and everything like
Yep.
that to control the height.
Yeah.
So we've restricted fish from being able to move around. And then for a long time, we were just, polluting the heck out of it. So we were
Yeah.
throwing in all sorts of stuff, which then makes it so it's hard for the mussels to actually survive. And so, what we do is we go out to more naturalized parts of the river system. So up in the forest preserves, things like that in the wintertime. So December to February, we find pregnant mussels and we bring them to the DuPage Urban Stream Research Center of the DuPage County Forest Preserve. They take them and then rear them in a tank with a fish. So the mussels squirt their young onto a fish. They latch on, they suck the blood of the fish. And then when they get big enough, after a couple months, they drop off, and then wherever they land, that's basically where they live the rest of their life. And so they put them in this tank, rear them, bring them through their most vulnerable stage. We return the mama mussel back to wherever we got her, and then we take these baby mussels, and then we put them in these bunkers on the Wild Mile, and then now a couple in Bubbly Creek. And so, see, these things, they're crazy. They filter, they're like rocks with guts.
Yeah.
They filter, 10 gallons of water per day per mussel.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And it does a ton of work, because they're sucking up all of the detritus, all the algae, all the stuff that you see kind of suspended in the water column. And, they're depositing it into the sediment. So then when they're doing this, they're clearing the water. So then the water you get better light penetration, which then means you get things like aquatic plants that are growing, which then helps make the benthic layer, the bottom of the river, better for mussels and other things like that. So they're huge pieces of the whole ecosystem. And
That's a whole show on the sex life of mussels.
I know.
oh yeah,
We're gonna have to have you back next season to
They-
just really talk about that.
they're wild. I mean,
That's amazing.
some of these things, they have this tongue, and they stick it out, and it looks like a minnow. It has fake eyes and stuff like that, and it attracts the fish to kind of come over. It's crazy because they're
Right,
eyes.
it looks like a rock.
Yeah, it's there's nothing there, but for some reason,
Well,
in
and I
these
think
years they figure it out.
probably a lot of Chicagoans have maybe a negative association
Because
with
of
mussels in our
zebra
water
mussels.
because
Oh,
of the
yeah.
zebra mussels.
Yeah.
But this is a totally different thing. These are mussels meant to be in our water.
Yeah, I mean zebra mussels. That's a whole other can of worms. You know, you want to get and support the things that have really evolved to live in that ecosystem, and that helps, you know, buffer against some of these things as well. So, you know, I think it's an important piece of the whole puzzle.
Wow.
Now, you talked a little bit about we've talked about how this project, the Wild Mile, the work you're doing on the river, has become a model for other cities. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Are there other cities that are thinking about their river as a sanctuary for wildlife, too?
Yeah, I mean, we've had over 70 cities reach out to us.
Wow.
Yeah, and, you know, part of the whole goal of the Wild Mile is to become a model for how you do this. You know, we want this to be something that people look at, because this could have been built without any wildlife component. It could have been just a boardwalk and everything like that, but we're trying to figure out how to do this right and then kind of share what we've done with others so that other cities can kind of copy us, can improve on it, can use this type of thing and eventually make it something that is more normalized. It's a piece that really is, it's a tool that I think is really useful to connect people with wildlife and kind of.
So were you guys the first ones? I mean, literally? Was this a graduate thesis? Or, like, how did you think of all of this?
No, yeah, I mean, it was just kind of trial and error for a long time, you know?
Wow.
There was like a tidbit where we knew that this was something and this could be cool. We knew that these plants could help suck out a lot of the excess nutrients. We knew that creating the roots in there will help with the wildlife. And so we just kind of, you know, focused on that and kept improving and figuring out how we could do it better and adding more stuff.
So were you just kayaking one day and just said, you know, would be a good idea?
More or less, yeah. I mean, I remember going through this canal, and you know, you look around and you're in the city, but you're lower.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of insulated from all of the noise in some way. You have the skyline behind you, and then at all these little areas, you're seeing wildlife, you know, clinging on. You're seeing like one log sitting there with turtles on it. You're seeing, you know, herons hanging out on some trees next to, a waste management center. And you're seeing all this stuff and you're like, okay, all they need is something. You have to, if you create a little bit of habitat, that can do a lot. And so I think that was kind of the impetus. I guess.
We've got a great photo, I think, that illustrates basically what you just said of one of these little lush pockets of nature with the Sears Tower right in the background there. That's so great.
Who would think that that's the Chicago River?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm the Chicagoans who we've talked about on our show in this season, I think would be amazed to see the river these days.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we're on a path. Like you look at, you know, I remember I was in Melbourne in Australia, and I was looking at the river. It's great. The Yarra River, they do a good job there. Everyone was complaining about it. Everyone was like, this piece of junk, and, you know, like, oh, there's so many bikes in there. And I was like, what? This is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Thinking about our river. And then if you look back at, you know, Chicagoans, you know, 40, 50, 60 years ago, and you showed them our river now compared to then, they'd be like, oh, it's done. Good work. We're done. So I think just as things progress, you know, our expectations just get, you know, bigger, and it becomes something where people feel like it always should have been this way or always has been this way. And, you know, I think that this is one step in a long journey of us trying to reconcile.
They just had a thing. How many cars did they pull out of the river?
A lot
It
of
was
them.
like
I think they found like, I don't know, 90 or something, but I think they only pulled out 2. I think the rest are still there.
Okay.
Now, I'm sure everybody at home who just watched this episode is thinking, how do I get involved in urban rivers? I want to go move mussels and build islands.
Yeah.
So how do they do that, Nick? How do people get involved?
Let me tell you. So we have a bunch of different volunteer opportunities. I mean, everything is built and maintained, you know, with mostly volunteers. And so if you go to our website, urbanrivers.org, and there's a volunteer page. You can sign up there, you know, and then go through. We have people who go out and kayak and pick up trash. We do that 4 days a week, so people can come out and do that type of things. We have people who are helping with garden maintenance. We have people running field trips and walking tours, bat research, all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
And it sounds like you don't need any kind of fancy degree or background to get into this. If someone's passionate, that's all it takes, right?
That's all it takes. Passion is it. That's the key. You don't need to know anything.
And you do field trips. I saw you had 1,400 students that came by field trips.
Yeah, and I don't know how many we had. That was last year. I don't know. We've exceeded that number. I don't know by how much, but we have I think 30 students out at this exact moment. So
That's
depending on when you're
awesome.
watching.
Well, Nick, it has been such a pleasure to have you on this episode. I know it certainly makes me want to go out and feed some mussels in the river. Now, of course, you can come visit the Chicago Maritime Museum Tuesday through Sunday from 10 to 4 and learn all about the past that is the reason why we have to clean up the river these days. Thank you all so much for joining us. It's been a fabulous first season here on Making Waves.
And we definitely want to thank Nick and my curator extraordinaire, Madeline.
And my education director extraordinaire,
but
too.
also our not-for-profit production coordinators, Rocio Santos and Imani Payne, and the program director, Leslie Johnson, for keeping us in our beautiful city of Chicago alive and well in not-for-profit land.
Thanks, everyone, so much.
Thank you.